Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Second Son Woodworks here on my YouTube channel. My name is Caleb and this is part 4 of a series on how I made a giant live edge oak wooden frame. And if you haven't checked out the first 3 parts of this series, make sure to check them out. I'll link them above. So let's get started. You can see that I am sanding the back side of the frame. If you remember in the former episode, I did the pocket holes and I glued up each of those miters, and you can see here that I put some paper towels under the 4 different miters because I used quite a bit of Titebond 3 to ensure a really strong joint. So I took off those paper towels and then I went to sanding the front side of the frame. I initially thought that I would only have to use my sander to do the cleanup on the front side of the frame, but that wasn't enough, so I broke out the old DeWalt electric hand planer. This tool can do a lot and it's really useful, and it creates a lot of dust. But that's what vacuums are for, and I vacuumed it up later. And the planer did a great job of smoothing out a number of the sides of the frame so that I had a really clean look. And you'll see later on how clean it looks. If you're new to this channel, this would be an awesome time to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon next to it so you can stay notified when I release new project videos. I probably should have clamped down the frame when I was doing this section. Don't give me too much crap in the comments about that. But sometimes I just get super consumed in the project that I'm working on and I act a little crazy. So don't act crazy, be safe in the shop, especially when you're using power tools. You'll remember that in the previous episode, I had to do quite a bit of gluing and sawdusting into 2 of the miters that were just not quite perfect, and I had to use some shims. If you run into this, check out those other videos. It's helpful. This is a really easy way to fix the miters. And you'll see here that I'm doing just a little bit more gluing so that it's really perfect in the end. I guess nothing is really actually perfect, but it looks pretty good. You'll see. Stick around and you'll see. Just stick around. Don't click away. Don't. I decided to add a chamfer on the inside edge of the frame using my router and a chamfer bit. I think this added a nice little detail to the frame that really ties the whole thing together. Adding small little aesthetic things like this that take just a little bit more time add a really nice touch to custom woodworking, especially something like this with a frame because it really accentuates what you're framing and it makes the frame point toward the piece, which is a nice touch. But I'm no artist. I'm just another slave to the man. But just because I'm a slave doesn't mean you can't hit that subscribe button. Do it now and support Second Son Woodworks. Dun 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 dun. Once I had the chamfer cut on the inside edge, I moved on to sanding. And this would be the last bit of sanding before doing the finishing. So I think at this point I was at 120 grit, and I moved on to 220 before doing the first coat of Seal Once. At this point I'm pretty much always using my vacuum hose on my sander because it makes the whole sanding process not only a lot less dirty and dusty, but it actually helps and it picks up the dust from the project piece and really helps with the finishing process. So get yourself a vacuum hose for your sander. The sanding process can be somewhat monotonous and frustrating, but it does usually result in seeing the grain of the wood start to pop. And this wood that I milled myself here in Santa Barbara County using my chainsaw is beautiful, and I really started to see that beauty in the sanding process. Oh, and I shouldn't forget to let you know that I did do some hand sanding. Haha. But once the majority of the sanding was complete, I took that frame outside and I used my air compressor to blow as much of the dust off of the wooden frame as I could. Having an air compressor is kind of a necessity for a woodworker when it comes to finishing wood, sealing the grain of wood. So, yeah. At this point in the project, I was getting close to the end, and the end usually is when you finish the wood that you've been working on. And so I went ahead and laid down some plastic, and I will soon be using a product called Seal Once to seal the frame. I found out about the product called Seal Once from a blog or a post on a website that was related to the best outdoor sealants, and I found the Seal Once Marine version, but I've since moved on to the Nano Poly Seal Once, which is a water-based sealant that's all natural, and it seems to work very well. This product is not necessarily cheap, but it's not super expensive. A gallon is around $60, and one of these gallons will last you a while, especially if you're only doing 2 coats per project, which is the recommended amount. But since I've been using it for a bit, I have found that more coats are better. And if you can do more coats with sanding in between each of those coats, even better. When I brush this product on, as you can see, it looks kind of like a milky white, but it will eventually dry and be clear coat matte. Seal Once has a full catalog of different sheens for the Nano Poly, as well as different stain colors. I recently used the light brown for another project, and I gotta say that it's really nice. Now, I'm not getting paid for this little pitch about Seal Once, so I think you can take my word for it, but you make up your mind for yourself. Another added benefit to using this product is that it's not toxic and it's not super smelly like a polyurethane or spar urethane. According to the directions, you apply 1 coat and then you wait a maximum of 20 minutes to apply the second coat, which is what I did. But seriously, like I mentioned, don't feel scared to do more than 2 coats with a bit of sanding in between. It'll only make your project better and more shiny, or clear matte, but just better and more sealed. Yeah. Now, as you can see, after I let it dry overnight, I came back the next day and the Seal Once had completely dried. It was clear matte, which is the choice that I made when I bought the product, and it looked really nice. So I moved on to the back side of the frame. So I spent just a bit of time sanding the back side of the frame and getting it ready for the Seal Once. But before doing the Seal Once, I moved on to doing my brand with my branding iron, which is kind of a fun process and always makes me feel kind of proud when I finish another project. And really at this point I'm not completely finished, but almost finished. And that feels pretty good. Oh, and I made sure to spray some water on the zone before burning. Once the brand had cooled down just a bit, I sanded it and made it look nice and fresh and clean. And then I moved on to the Seal Once. Did the same process that I did earlier. I made sure to mix it, and then I did a full nice coat, waited 20 minutes, then did another coat. It was certainly important to seal both sides of the frame so that no moisture could get into the wood. So if you're still sticking around at this point, you should hit that subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. And let me know down below in the comments what you think about this project and if you have questions about anything that I'm doing. I also have an Instagram and a TikTok, and I do some fun shorts here on YouTube, so check those out. If you live in Southern California and you're interested in a custom project, reach out via my website, SecondSonWoodworks.com. I really appreciate all of my supporters out there who have subscribed and liked and commented in the past. Thank you. Okay, so at this point the entire frame had been finished and it was time to add the tile mosaic into the frame, and use some hardware to attach it to the frame so that it wouldn't fall out. I used tabletop fasteners, these Z-clips that I got on Amazon, to attach the tile mosaic to the frame, and they worked perfectly. These little metal clips that come with the screws are useful in a number of situations, but they were especially useful in attaching this tile mosaic, which was pretty heavy, and they did a great job of securing it to the frame. Before showing you the final product, the last step that I did was add a couple O-loop screws that are specifically made for framing wire to the back side so that they could attach some wire depending on where they would be hanging it. And then it was time to show you the final product, which I gotta say, it looked really nice, and I hope you think the same. This tile mosaic meant quite a bit to the people that I made this frame for, and I gotta say that the frame did a wonderful job of showing off that tile mosaic, the Vista Del Mar. Let me know what you think. The last thing that I'm doing right there is just sanding a little bit of the dried Seal Once to make it just a bit smooth, but it was pretty much done. So I hope that you have enjoyed this series. Hopefully you saw the first 3 parts, and I would be happy to hear just a bit about what you think down in the comment section below. Like I've said a few other times, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. This is really a great way to help out the Second Son Woodworks channel. And yeah, reach out. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time.